Welcome back to the podcast, guys. Have I got some wisdom in store for you today? I was actually inspired to make this episode after giving advice and support on a random Facebook post, and quite a few women were asking me deeper questions. So I thought, why not do a podcast episode on it? Because I think this information is vital for us to understand why the way we are in relationships. So, the topic of today is, how can my relationship with my dad affect my relationship now? This is some deep stuff, guys, okay? And leading on from the last episode, understanding your emotional needs, it comes from the relationship that you had with your caregivers as a child. So whether it was your dad or your stepdad or any caregiver in a male form, this is the type of stuff that is going on unconsciously within you and will actually give you a lot of answers as to why you are the way you are. And in order for us to make any type of transformation, we need to know where it's originating from, where our problem is originating from, in order for us to do something about it. And this is why I think this wisdom is so, so important. And I have a feeling already in my bones how transformational this podcast episode particularly is going to be. Anyway, let's just dive in, shall we? So, the main reason why I'm doing this episode is to understand that when we're born, we learn how to be a woman and how to be a man by the people that actually take care of us. And we actually learn what is a relationship by what we see as a child between the relationship of our mum and dad. And it's on that basis that we then learn about the male species and the female species, how they're supposed to act, how they're supposed to be, how they're supposed to make us feel. This is what we learn in growing up. And if I'm honest, this is why it's so important that when you consider to be in a relationship, not only are you considering that person to be your partner, but you're also considering that person to be the role model for your children in growing up. And such a huge question that I remember reading while I was with my ex is, would you be happy if your daughter dated your husband? That was like a huge slap around the face. And I was like, no, I do not want my daughter being with someone like that. However, if I did actually have children with him, my daughter would have learned that how my ex reacted was quote unquote normal. And she would have attracted the exact same type of person into her life. And I don't think many of us actually realize how important this blueprint is from our parents in teaching us about relationships and about how a man should be in our life. And most women that come to me do have father and mother wounds. This is normal. All of us have them. However, it's about us understanding the wounds that we've received from our mother and father to transform the type of relationships that we have going forward. So if you're listening to this and you've been in toxic relationships before, or you had a challenging relationship with your father, which is then causing problems in your current relationships right now, you're in the right place to understand why. So this is the first time I've actually properly prepared for a podcast episode with notes. I don't normally do this. It normally comes quite intuitively. So the notes have come intuitively, but I really didn't want to forget anything to make sure that you guys have as much info as possible to understand how your relationships are the way they are through the relationship with your dad on this episode. And then the next episode, I'm going to do your mum as well. So you can really, really understand how the two are contributing to your relationships today. So the first major thing that I want to start with is trust, because so many women out there struggle to trust the man that they're in a relationship with. And it could be, and this was what the post was about actually, she was in a relationship and she said, the guy is fantastic. He literally shows me so much proof that he's not cheating on me. However, I still can't trust him. And my answer to that was, it's nothing about him that you don't trust. You actually don't trust the masculine energy, the masculine person. And that goes down even deeper. So as a child, if your dad makes a promise to you, as example, when I come home from work tonight, we'll go to the park. And then he comes back from work and he doesn't take you to the park. He's broken your trust. Which means if I can't trust my own dad to keep a promise, how can I trust any man to keep a promise with me? If as a child you was aware that your dad was having a affair and you knew about it and he told you to keep it a secret, through that whole situation right there, how can you trust a man to be faithful with you if your own dad isn't faithful with your mum? As children, as young children, these are the questions that we ask ourselves. We don't have the capability and we don't have the brain development as young children to think of alternatives. We only blame ourselves. Maybe I'm not good enough for my dad to keep that promise. We internalize this. So then, when our dad makes a promise to us again, we don't actually trust that he's going to fulfill that promise because he didn't before. So if he didn't before, why is he going to do it now? And why are men in the future going to keep to their word? That one action of your dad as a child has imprinted a belief in you that actually says the masculine is not trustworthy. So if I can't trust my dad to keep a promise, I can't trust the masculine. In general, I can't trust a man to keep his promise. And with that, as adults, that actually puts a shield around our hearts as women, as a protective shield, to not let a guy come a certain closeness to us. Why? Because we can't trust them. Because we can't trust our own father. So that is the biggest reason why there are trust issues in your relationship. Because your partner is only mimicking the same actions as your dad. Why? Because it's asking you to heal it. It's telling you enough is enough now. I want you to grow and mature out of the belief that the masculine isn't trustworthy, because do you know what? That's not the truth. And that's not the truth. What your dad did to you is one person out of the whole masculine world that's untrustworthy. But because as children we believe that our dad is our world, we believe that everyone else is the same. And this is one huge, huge area of healing that is required to support you on your journey to actually trust the man that you're with. Once you actually learn the truth of what happened to you as a child and why your dad couldn't keep his promises, and how you can actually learn what is a truthful masculine man and what he's about, you can transform this belief. You just take it out and then pop the new empowered belief inside. So that's number one. Number two is safety. And safety can be in the form of many different things. The first one being emotionally. If you are expressing your emotions as a young child and your dad is quite chaotic with that, and he's like, "Ugh, stop crying, everything's going to be okay, everything's going to be okay. Do you want your favourite chocolate bar? I'll go and get your favourite chocolate bar, don't worry." Or, "It's okay, stop crying, why don't we go to the park?" In that moment, your dad is not creating emotional safety for you to express yourself emotionally. He's actually, believe it or not, in those actions, he's actually avoiding how you're feeling and how your emotions want to express themselves, which is creating a belief inside you that my emotions are not allowed to be expressed in front of the masculine. The masculine is not interested in my emotions. He just wants me to be happy. Which then later on in relationships, with that belief you're carrying forward, you're then no longer expressing yourself emotionally. You're no longer being vulnerable. Why? Because if your dad didn't accept it, how's your partner going to accept it? That's why when you're emotional in your relationships, you probably go to a quiet place and cry alone and express your emotions alone, because you'd much rather do that than feel hurt like you did when you was younger by your father, by feeling that your emotions weren't important. So that's one form of safety. The other form is in a protective way. So as example, say you had a problem and you went to your dad and you asked your dad to help you and support you and protect you, and he actually wasn't interested. Number one, that's very hurtful as a child, because you believe at that point that your parents are there to protect you, especially your dad. So if my dad can't protect me and help me, that means I've got to be a strong person and I've got to do it by myself. This is where hyper-independence of women comes from, because their dad never protected them as a child. So if my dad can't protect me, I have to protect myself. I have to protect my heart. I have to protect everything about me, because no one else is there to support me and to be my protector. Once that happens, a shield is created around your heart again. And that is when you become hyper-independent in your relationships. And believe it or not, because you then become hyper-independent, you become the masculine figure, which means you will then attract a feminine energy mummy's boy into your life. Because if you attract a divine masculine man who is the protector and you're the protector, you're going to keep arguing and having battles together, because he's going to want to protect you, but you protect yourself. So those energies are actually going to, you're not going to attract each other. You will then attract a feminine mummy's boy into your life as an opposite to who you are in yourself. And you are that way in yourself because of what you've been through as a child and what you learn about the masculine, that the masculine is not there to protect me. When in reality, that was just your situation as a child. It doesn't mean that because your dad didn't protect you, that there isn't a man out there who can protect you. And that's a really important piece that I want to let you know about. And another form of safety is the safety of being provided for. So if you witnessed that your dad financially couldn't provide for you, and that led to you struggling in life, and it led to a number of hurtful feelings within you, you then start to question the financial safety of the masculine. Or maybe your dad did earn very good money, however, he wasn't sensible with that money. Or, like in my situation, he earned very good money, however, he was very tight with it. Very tight. So that makes you question the financial safety of a man. Even if he has money, that doesn't mean he's going to give it to me. Money to him is power, and he's not going to let that go and be given to me. So then that imprinted a belief in me that the masculine doesn't provide. So if the masculine doesn't provide, I've got to provide for myself. And again, this is where the hyper independence of women comes from. That if my dad can't provide for me, I have to provide for myself. I have to get the car. I have to get the house. I have to be in the well-paid job because no one else is going to give me what I desire. Only I can give myself what I desire. Which again, later on is affecting us in relationships because you're being burnt out because you are actually playing the masculine and the feminine role all together. You're trying to be the success because you desire a lot of things in your life. So you're trying to be successful, work in a successful job. However, at the same time, you want to be in your feminine by nurturing and caring for your children, looking after your house, and taking care of your husband. Both of these things are challenging to go hand in hand. And this is why if you are feeling burnt out as a woman, this is where it comes from. Because you can't trust the masculine, that the masculine is going to be able to provide for you. The masculine is going to be able to give you your desires. And it could very much be that there is a man out there that wants to provide for you. But because you believe that not to be true, he can't be an energetic match to you. And this is the main reason why I'm explaining all of these things. Because your belief system is an energetic match to the world. You are a magnet. So whatever you believe inside is what you attract. If you believe men that are not going to provide for you, you'll attract a lazy ass git who literally can't be bothered to work, or he'll work and keep the money for himself. Because that's what you saw as a child, and that's what you believe to be true. However, again, your dad is one man from the whole of the masculine species that is showing you a representation of what is a masculine. So, also, safety. With safety, again, this can also make you as a woman emotionally unavailable. And it can also make you abandon yourself, because if your dad is not there for you emotionally, you actually teach yourself that your emotions don't matter, so you become emotionally unavailable. Hence why you attract emotionally unavailable men as a reflection of what's going on internally. And also through this emotional safety, if your dad doesn't provide you with the emotional safety, you also learn to abandon that part of yourself. which means with you abandoning, you then become a people pleaser. Because you learn that when you're emotional, your dad isn't around. So if I'm not emotional, abandoning the sadness and the anger that you hold within you, and I can just be happy all the time, that means my dad's going to be there. So then you do exactly the same in relationships later on. You abandon yourself, you become emotionally unavailable just to make sure that the masculine stays around, which is not okay. Next one, aggression and controlling behaviour. Whose dad was aggressive and controlling towards their mum? This aggression and controlling behaviour can actually make you extremely scared of the masculine. Because aggression and control can be used as a power technique, like a power dynamic, to show that I'm the powerful one here. When deep down, the masculine doesn't believe he's powerful enough because he's in his wounded masculine energy. So because he's not being powerful and he's not being respected, he has to get that power and respect through being controlling and aggressive. So if you witness that as a child, you believe that aggressive behavior and controlling behavior is actually normal. So when you witness that between your mum and dad, you will actually see how submissive your mum becomes. Because if your mum's submissive to an aggressive, controlling man, he will then calm down and get everything that he wants from her. And because you become scared of that aggression, you then actually abandon yourself in the process, because that's exactly what your mum did. So when your dad is aggressive and controlling, you learn that if you forget about yourself and do everything he asks, he's going to be happy and then he's going to love you. And as a child, that is the number one thing that you desire, and that is your number one goal every single minute of every single day as a child, is to be loved. So if that means that I have to forget about myself to be loved, that's okay. That's not a problem, because love is the most important thing. And as a child, we don't have any other way of thinking. That is how our minds are as children. This is why doing the inner child work is so important, because how our minds are programmed, especially between the ages of 3 and 7, that is going to be our template for the rest of our life. So with us being submissive and doing what they ask, we are hugely abandoning ourselves. And also with us abandoning ourselves, we then put on the mask, especially as girls, as being the good girl, being the perfectionist. Because when dad is aggressive and controlling, and I go up to him and say, "Dad, guess what? I did this, this, and this today in my exam, and I made you look good," that's going to make him happy. That's going to lessen his aggressive behavior, and he's no longer going to control you because you did something good. So then you then believe in yourself that if I do whatever he needs me to do, he's going to be happy. So if I'm a good girl and I do everything that he wants, he's going to love me. But in reality, that's not truth. However, as a young child, that's what we see to be true because we want love. So then what happens in relationships later on is that as soon as there is an argument, there is a resonance of aggressive energy coming up, boiling up within him, that good girl is clicked on straight away. That perfectionist is clicked on straight away. So then you actually look at the situation and say to yourself, well, how have I been the bad one here? How can I be the perfectionist? How can I be the good girl? So then you start to do things that you don't want to do to calm his aggression. You actually believe as a child that his aggression is your responsibility to handle. And that's what happens in relationships as an adult. That you then start to take on his aggression as your responsibility, which you then handle with good girl, perfectionist behavior. Which again, is not okay. And this is why the toxic cycles are continuing in your life, because you've got an imprint within you from your dad that if you're a good girl and if you forget about yourself and make his emotional state your responsibility and you make him happy, you're going to be okay and you're going to be loved. Because you witnessed aggressive and controlling behavior, you actually imprint as a child that the masculine is an aggressive and controlling person. That's normal. So you will then automatically attract that in your life with masculine energy because that's the belief inside you. So when you then get into a relationship with a calm, soothing man, that doesn't work because that goes against your belief system inside you. Again, this is why this work is so important. Next one. Being materialistic and head-driven. Why is this so important? Because your dad focuses on his own self-image that much. He worries about what the world thinks of him outside. As long as the world thinks of him as a good, masculine man outside, that's the most important thing. And how does he do that? He does that through having the nice watches, having the nice cars, having the nice clothes, making sure that his family is a representation of him, because people are going to treat him differently if they think he's poor, if they think he isn't financially stable. And this in itself teaches us as women that we have to seek external validation to be okay in the world. We have to make sure that we live up to certain expectations that society puts on us, because if we don't, then the masculine himself is going to erupt. We have to do what society expects of us. This is why it's so challenging for some women to leave relationships, because society expects us to stay. If we don't meet society's expectations, we're not good enough. We're not okay. And this is actually what I did in my relationship. I stayed. Why? Because Islamically, divorce is not accepted. Within the culture and society here, divorce isn't accepted. And in society here, if you leave someone, that means you're out on the curb. You're damaged. You're used goods. Did I want people to think that of me? No. So I stayed in a place that no longer served me. Why? Because that was what my mind was telling me that society expected. Because I learned from my dad that you have to seek validation outside of you. You have to be what society expects, not embody who you are and accept who you are and don't worry about the outside world. Can you see how my dad's actions impacted me as a child and as an adult in my relationships? Such small things, yet so important. Next one. Lack of emotional presence, or your dad actually not being around. The most important for us as women is our emotions. That's who we are at our core. Everything is about who we are emotionally. So if the masculine, if our dad in our life doesn't allow us to be emotional, But also, if he doesn't provide us with the emotions that we need, it actually makes us unavailable to emotions altogether. And the thing is, as kids, we don't realize how sensitive we are to energies. So our dad could think that he was loving us by buying us things. But when he bought us things, the energy of love wasn't there. It was just, I know love to be buying things, so I'm going to buy you things because that's what happened to me as a kid. And I was happy when I got things. So I'm going to do exactly the same with my kids. So it's a cycle. But as a child, even when he's buying us things, we don't feel the energy of love, which actually hurts us. So when it hurts us step by step, we actually put the shield around our hearts to protect ourselves, because our dad didn't love us the way that we wanted to be loved. So if our dad can't love us, then can any man really love us? And especially for women whose dad wasn't around when they were a child, or their mum and dad split up, it can leave a huge abandonment wound within us, which makes us believe that we're unlovable, we're not important, we're insignificant, and we're not enough. And that is huge as a little girl. And this is where the emotions mainly hit us, and this is what we mainly attract in men. If we have the deepest father wound, is the abandonment wound. And if that wound itself isn't healed, you will then attract a man in your life who, whenever there's an argument, threatens he's going to leave. Whenever there's an argument, he makes you feel unimportant. Whenever you do something for him, how he talks, he makes you feel that you're not enough. Or when you are having a discussion, he makes you feel insignificant. It's not actually about this man. It's about how your father made you feel as a child. And that's what's coming in. Your belief system is attracting that in until you decide to heal it. And the other thing as well with that, you question yourself, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? Why can't the masculine love me for me? What's wrong with me? And this is why you go in a continuous cycle of trying to fix yourself or trying to fix the other person, because you do not feel accepted by the masculine as a child, which is then coming out in your relationships. That no matter what I do, there's always a problem. But as I say, it's not about the guy that's sitting in front of you right now. It's actually about how your father made you feel as a child. Lastly, refuses help and is easily offended. This is a big one because this actually shows a lot of anger. A lot of anger comes up in the masculine at this point, which makes you feel as a child very, very unsafe. Very, very unsafe. When he's angry, you don't know what he's going to do. So, and you actually believe that type of behavior is actually normal. So you actually believe that a man being insecure is being a man. It's part of the masculine energy. That's what this behavior is teaching you as a child. So this going forward is actually making you unsafe around the masculine generally. So when you're in relationships, even though you are in love with him, you don't feel totally secure around him. You don't feel safe in your body. You always feel uptight, anxious, or depressed. Because you don't trust the masculine. At any point he could erupt for anything. because he's easily offended. And him being easily offended, you don't know what that means. And also, this then can create the hyper-independence as a woman. So if you saw your dad refusing help and easily being offended, you will then actually incorporate that type of behavior and not ask for help out in the outside world. You'll believe that you can do it yourself. Everything's fine. I've got it. But also at the same time, you can be easily offended when you're not doing it. And then you can then embody aggressive behavior, which will then cause problems in your relationship. Because when your partner or your husband wants to support you, you'll refuse it. So then you'll be burnt out. And then you'll cause arguments with him. But you're actually not allowing his help. Because you've been taught as a child not to ask for help. When your partner is offering you advice, you don't take it as advice, you take it as offense. You take him attacking you, when in reality, he actually wants the best for you. He wants you to be the best version of you. And him telling you this, yes, it's going to trigger you, but it's going to actually make you a better person for knowing this information. But instead of all of that going in, because your dad took constructive criticism as being offended, you then do exactly the same thing. Your masculine protector within you comes up and starts to protect you, but not in the right way. So these are the main points as to why, or should I say, as to how your dad, the relationship with your dad can affect your relationships right now. I think there's been loads and loads and loads of light bulb moments in this episode for you. And if there has been, this is the little rabbit holes that you can now go in to transform your relationship that you have, or future relationships that you will have going forward. This is where the work is needed to be done. It's around healing, number one, the childhood version of you that has taken on certain beliefs when you was a child. It's about healing that and actually understanding the truth of what happened in your past. And then it's about actually learning, well, what is divine masculine energy? What is a true masculine man all about? And how can I embody that now? Because remember, you are a magnet. What you are is what you attract. So if you can embody a divine masculine man yourself, and you can have all the traits of a masculine man yourself within yourself. And by the way, masculine energy and masculine traits, it's an actual energy form. So with you embodying masculine energy, that doesn't mean that you're going to become a man, because both of us have masculine and feminine energies within us that alternate, so we can be who we are. That's normal. But we have an embodiment of a predominant energy. So as example, for me, when I'm doing my work, I'm predominantly masculine to allow the feminine in my clients to flourish. Whereas when I'm out of my work, I'm in my feminine. So then the masculine outside of me can come to me. I have a balance, and this is what it's about. Having the balance of the divine energies so we can attract it in. And this is why doing the self-development on your work, on yourself, can really, really transform your whole entire life in so many ways. Not only in relationships, but with your own work relationship, your own friendships. If I'm in my feminine energy when I'm out of work, I will have fellow women in their feminine energy with me. And we will then bring out the best of each other within that. If I'm in a friendship and they need to really flourish in their feminine, I will step back and be in my masculine to support them to flourish. It's a really nice little dance between the two. However, when we're in the wounded, there is no dance. There is no happiness within that dance. That's why we need to empower both the energies to be in the divine forms. So this is so deep right here. So deep. And I've actually really been working on this in the last year, and it's been transformational, to say the least. So yeah. So I'm not going to talk anymore because I feel like I've really bombarded you. However, please re-listen to this. Please take notes. Please really inspect the small little details that happened to you as a child, especially around your dad, and see how that's impacting your relationships, and see how, by healing the relationship with your dad, how it can really transform the types of disagreements that you're having in your marriage. And by doing this work, you can actually transform your marriage. Instead of you believing that you're trying to fix your dad while being in a marriage, you can actually see the person that you're in a relationship with instead. It's huge. The main reason why I've recorded this episode is because you might be sitting there deeply desiring a healthy man after being in toxic relationship after toxic relationship after toxic relationship. This is once we transform the beliefs and the wounds that we have around our dad within us, we can start attracting different types of people into our life. Once we actually understand that our dad wasn't actually a healthy representation of the masculine, once we learn actually what is a healthy masculine man, what are the good things of a man, instead of just solidly focusing on the bad things, what are the green flags? How can a man actually truly be my safe place? How can he be my protector? How can he be my provider? How can he be emotionally available? And how can he love me as a man's supposed to love me? Once we actually open our minds to that possibility and learn that there is another form of the masculine, we can start attracting that into our life. So if you are deeply desiring to attract a divine, healthy masculine man, this is the work. And if you want to take this further, I'd love to invite you into my one-to-one mentorship. And this is where we do this deep work, we do this deep healing, and we totally rebuild your vision of what a man truly is. Anyway, keep shining, keep smiling, my beautiful souls, and I will catch you on the next episode when we will look at the relationship with your mom.